I was folding Jason's school uniform when I heard the front door slam harder than necessary. It echoed through the walls of our modest craftsman house like a warning shot. At 65, I've lived long enough to know that certain sounds aren't just sounds, they're signals. And that one told me something was breaking, something I wouldn't be able to fix with a hug or a pot roast. I set the neatly pressed shirt down on the armrest and listened for a second slam that never came. No voice. No footsteps. Just silence. Then a suitcase dragging across the hardwood. My heart sank. I wiped my hands on the dish towel tucked into my waistband and climbed the stairs, one creaky board at a time. Derek's bedroom door was wide open, and he stood in the middle of the room like a man possessed. Grabbing clothes, jamming them into a black duffel bag with no care for wrinkles or order. The kind of packing you do when you're not planning to come back. His work laptop blinked on the bed, screen glowing with browser tabs he hadn't bothered to close. I caught a glimpse of one, rental listings. Another, flight deals to cities I had no business knowing about. Going somewhere? I asked from the doorway, keeping my voice as calm as my nerves would allow. Derek didn't flinch, didn't look up. Just a business thing, last minute. He lied the way some people breathe, reflexively and without remorse. A business trip? Since when does the county real estate office send tech coordinators out of state? No answer. He shoved socks into the side pouch and swept the rest of his toiletries off the dresser in one motion. A picture frame clattered to the floor, glass shattering as Linda's smiling face hit the wood. Her arms were cradling Jason in the hospital bed, her eyes radiant with new motherhood and exhaustion. It was the only photo we had of the three of them together before she bled out 13 hours later. Derek didn't even glance down. He used to kiss that photo every night like a prayer. Now it was just in the way. "Derek?" I stepped into the room, my voice steadier than I felt. "Stop. Talk to me. What's really going on?" He finally looked up, and what I saw made my knees buckle. Nothing. Not grief, not guilt, not love. Just a cold, vacant resolve, like the man who'd been my son had checked out long ago and left someone else behind. "I'm leaving, Mom," he said simply, zipping the bag shut with a sound that felt like the end of a chapter. I should have done it years ago. The breath left my body. For years, I'd carried this family on my back, kept Jason's lunchbox packed and his shoes tied, taught him how to ride a bike and how to grieve. I kept the house standing with my teacher's pension, weathered every storm with the quiet grit that motherhood demands. All while Derek spiraled deeper into late-night absences and quiet detachment, hidden behind glowing screens and empty promises. And now he was just leaving? What about Jason? Derek swung the duffel onto his shoulder. "He's better off with you. He always has been." That casual cruelty hit harder than the lie. The man couldn't even give his son a goodbye hug, much less an explanation. He was turning fatherhood into a handoff. "You can't just abandon your child." "I'm not abandoning him," Derek said flatly. "I'm leaving him with the person who actually raised him." I stepped in front of the door. "Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. We are still a family." He shrugged off my words like they were lint on his jacket. "There is no family, Mom. There's just you and Jason pretending everything's fine while I pay the bills." He brushed past me, suitcase thudding against the frame as he left. I chased after him down the stairs, slippers skimming the carpet runner like sleds. By the time I reached the bottom, he was already at the door. Jason sat at the kitchen table, pencil in hand, quietly working through his algebra homework. He looked up when Derek entered the room, his brown eyes unreadable, but far too alert for a kid who should have been worrying about exponents and fractions. "Going somewhere, Dad?" Derek froze. For half a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, the sight of his son would stop him. But then he nodded. "I need some time away, buddy. Grandma will take care of you." "For how long?" Jason asked, voice steady. "I don't know yet." Jason just nodded. One nod, like he'd filed it away under expected outcomes. That's when I knew. He'd been waiting for this moment. And still, it broke my heart. Derek opened the door and the October wind surged into the room, the smell of wet leaves and distance. "I'll call when I'm settled." "Where are you going?" I asked, even though I knew he wouldn't answer. He turned slightly. Shadows across his face. "Somewhere I can breathe again." Then the door clicked shut. It didn't slam. It clicked. Quiet. Final. The kind of closing that says, "Don't wait up." I stood there frozen while Derek loaded his bag into the car and drove away from the life he once helped build. Jason and I remained in the silence he left behind. The grandfather clock ticked. The fridge hummed. Outside, a single dry leaf scraped across the porch like a warning. "Is he coming back?" Jason asked. I wanted to lie. God help me, I wanted to tell him his father just needed a little space, a little time. But Jason had his mother's eyes, and Linda never tolerated lies, not even the comforting kind. "I don't think so, sweetheart." Jason closed his math book with careful fingers and stacked it on top of his history binder. His face remained calm, but his shoulders straightened. His voice was soft when he spoke next, but it landed like a promise. "Don't worry, Grandma. I'll handle this." I blinked at him. "Handle what?" He picked up his books and walked past me toward the stairs. "I need to check our bank accounts first. Then we'll know what we're really dealing with." Bank accounts. My grandson was 13 years old and talking like an auditor. "Jason, wait." But he was already gone. His bedroom door closed behind him, and I was left alone in a house that suddenly felt much too big. Upstairs, I heard the soft clicking of a keyboard. Slow. Focused. Deliberate. And though I didn't yet know the full extent of the storm Derek had left behind, I had the sinking feeling that the person most capable of facing it was already preparing for battle. And he wasn't wearing a cape. He was wearing yesterday's hoodie and a look I'd never seen before, one that said he'd stopped being a child the moment his father walked out that door. I didn't sleep that night. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful. It was the heavy kind, the kind that hums behind your ears and presses on your chest like a weight. I stayed in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow and steady above me, like it knew time was still moving forward whether I was ready or not. Around midnight, I heard it. The rhythmic tapping of keys from Jason's room. Not random like a game, not casual like chatting with friends. This was focused, deliberate typing, the kind I'd heard from Derek's room late at night before things started to go wrong. I got up, wrapped my robe tighter, and padded barefoot down the hallway. The light under Jason's door glowed faintly against the dark floorboards. I knocked softly. "Sweetheart, it's past midnight." A pause, then Jason's voice, calm and clear. "Come in, Grandma." I opened the door, expecting to find him watching videos or maybe finishing homework, but what I saw stole the breath from my chest. Jason was sitting at his desk, still fully dressed, his laptop surrounded by open notebooks, printed papers, and half-drunk water bottles. The screen glowed with browser tabs I couldn't begin to make sense of. Spreadsheets, transaction logs, email chains, search results. It looked like a crime scene or an investigation. What are you doing up so late? Research, he said simply, not looking up. I've been going through Dad's digital footprint for the past 3 hours. I blinked. His what? He clicked something and a new window opened on his screen, Derek's email inbox. I recognized the old Gmail address. Jason scrolled through it like it was his own. Your father's email? I asked, moving closer. How did you... He uses the same password for everything, Jason said with a shrug. Linda 2008, the year they got married. My throat tightened. I remembered how Derek used to carve her name into every password field like it was still sacred. You hacked into his account. Technically, I logged in with the information he gave the world, Jason said calmly. It's not hacking if he left the door open. I sat down slowly in the chair beside his desk. My knees felt like wet cardboard. Jason, what exactly are you looking for? He handed me a printed bank statement. My name was right at the top. This one's your savings account, he said. I stared at the numbers. My lifetime of small deposits gone. I'd spent 40 years putting money into that account. Birthday checks, side tutoring gigs, leftover grocery budget. It now read $11.76. No, I whispered. That has to be a mistake. It's not. Jason's voice held no panic, just facts. He's been draining it for the last 2 months. My hand trembled as I set the paper down. What about your college fund? Jason reached for another stack. Gone, all of it. $42,600 transferred to Dad's personal checking account 3 weeks ago. Then moved somewhere else. I'm still tracing the destination. I tried to breathe, but the room tilted. Why would he do this to us? Jason didn't answer. He simply clicked again and opened a photo on the screen. A woman, late 30s, dark hair, red lips, confident smile, dressed like someone who knew how to manipulate both numbers and people. This is Madeline Quinn, Jason said. She works at Silverview Financial downtown. She and Dad have been emailing, texting, even video chatting for months. He scrolled through a series of messages, most of them flirtatious, some of them downright criminal. They've been planning this. She helped him move the money, create fake documents, even apply for loans under your name and mine. The screen showed a digital application for a personal loan, $35,000, my social security number, a fake income. Then another application using Jason's name, but a fake birthday to make him seem old enough. My mouth went dry. This is identity theft. It is, Jason agreed, and I've documented all of it. Every transfer, every login, every IP address. I made a folder. He double-clicked and a new window popped up. It was labeled Evidence. Inside were dozens of files, PDFs, screenshots, HTML downloads, chat transcripts, bank logs, financial applications. I'm still organizing by type, he added. Fraudulent transfers in one folder, phishing emails in another. I stared at him, my grandson, barefoot, hoodie zipped up to his neck, hair slightly tousled, eyes laser-focused. You did all this? When? Mostly this week. I've been suspicious for a while. Why didn't you say anything? Because I needed proof. I couldn't stop him with a feeling, but now I can. A sharp buzz broke the air, an email notification on his laptop. Jason glanced at it, then smiled slightly. That's the fraud alert I filed with the bank earlier. They've frozen Dad's personal account while they investigate. I could barely comprehend what I was hearing. You filed a fraud alert? He nodded. and I reported Madeline to her company's compliance office. I sent them everything she's done: client manipulation, data breaches, financial misconduct. I covered my mouth. "Jason, what have you done?" "I protected us." His voice didn't shake. "Dad thought we'd just lie down and take it. He didn't count on me." He clicked again. A new email. His smile widened. "That's from Silverview HR. Madeline's been suspended pending internal investigation." I sat back, completely overwhelmed. My God. Jason closed the laptop. "Grandma, this isn't over yet. There's more, a lot more. But now they know someone's watching them. That's step one." I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized something I hadn't let myself see until now. He was no longer just a boy trying to do his homework. He was a storm with a sense of justice and a thirst for truth. And Derek had no idea what he'd created when he walked out that door. The next morning, I woke to the smell of scrambled eggs and coffee. For a split second, I thought everything that had happened was just a dream. But when I stepped into the kitchen and saw Jason fully dressed, his hair neatly combed, and 2 plates set at the table, reality landed hard. "You cook breakfast?" I asked, a little dazed. "You need to eat something," he said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We've got a lot to deal with today." He poured orange juice into my glass with a steady hand, as if he'd been doing this for years. I sat down slowly. "Sweetheart, how are you doing all this?" Jason looked at me with those 2 old eyes of his. "I've been preparing for weeks. I just didn't know how bad it really was until last night." He handed me a manila folder before I could respond. I opened it with trembling fingers and found a police report. Names, dates, and charges. "Madeline Quinn has a history," Jason said, sipping his juice like he was delivering a book report. "She used to work at a firm in Denver, embezzled over $90,000 from senior clients before she got caught. But she wasn't in prison. She made restitution and took a plea deal. They dropped the charges in exchange for her resignation. She moved here and got hired at Silverview. No one checked her background." I read the summary twice. Embezzlement, elder abuse, misuse of client funds. "How did you even find this?" "Court records are public if you know how to search by jurisdiction," he said. "I cross-referenced her aliases too. She used to go by Maddie Quinn in Colorado. Same photo on her LinkedIn." My stomach turned. "And she's doing it again?" "She never stopped. I've got transaction records from at least a dozen victims." Jason pulled out another document and placed it in front of me. Mrs. Annabelle Green, 78 years old. Missing $40,000 from her retirement account. Madeline replaced the quarterly statements with fake ones. I stared at the page. The woman's face, wrinkled, kind, unsuspecting, looked like half the women in my Bible study group. Dear God. "She's been targeting elderly clients with no close family or oversight," Jason explained. "Madeline even has a list in her email. She called it soft marks." "And Derek knew?" My voice cracked. Jason nodded. "I've got messages between him and Madeline discussing how to cover her tracks. He set up dummy investment sites to simulate market losses, coached her on what to tell clients. They were in it together." I felt sick. So he wasn't just running off with her. He was helping her steal from other people. Jason tapped his laptop. He built fake financial dashboards, used JavaScript to make pages show growth when the accounts were actually emptying. I checked the code. I shook my head in disbelief. "He's not even a real developer." "No," Jason said, "but he knew enough. And what he didn't know, he learned fast. Just like me." He looked up then, and something shifted in the room. He wasn't bragging. He wasn't even angry. He was just resolved, cold and clear, like a doctor giving a diagnosis no one wanted to hear. "I can't believe he would do this," I whispered. Jason reached across the table and took my hand. "He stopped being your son a long time ago, Grandma. You just didn't want to see it." The words hurt, but they were true. We ate in silence for a while. My fork moved, but I couldn't taste anything. I was still trying to process the idea that Derek, my only child, had become something monstrous. Not just a man who left his family, but a man who preyed on the vulnerable. A man who taught his son more about fraud than about baseball. And Jason? Jason had become something else entirely. After breakfast, he pulled out a new binder. "Today, I want to finish documenting everything and prepare packages for each of Madeline's victims." Packages? Anonymous envelopes with evidence, instructions on how to file complaints, and contact info for legal aid services. If we send them out fast, we might be able to recover some of the money before it disappears for good. My mouth fell open. "You're going to expose everything?" He nodded. "They deserve to know. But what about us? If people find out what Derek did, what you've done, there could be legal consequences." Jason closed the binder. "I'm not afraid of consequences. I'm afraid of silence." I stared at him. "This isn't your responsibility, Jason. You're just a kid." He smiled faintly. "Not anymore." Later that day, he made copies of every file. He even printed instructions for the victims, step-by-step guides in large font with phone numbers and bullet points. He showed me the envelopes, already addressed and ready to go. He moved like someone on a mission, like a soldier who knew his battlefield and didn't flinch at the sound of gunfire. That night, the phone rang. I saw the name before I picked it up. Derek. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Mom." Derek's voice came through the line, shaky, panicked, hollow. "We need to talk. Something's wrong." I glanced toward the stairs, where Jason was in his room. The faint sound of typing drifted down. "What's wrong?" I asked. "My accounts are frozen. Madeline, she got fired. Her boss said they got an anonymous file about her. The police came by our motel. Mom, someone knows everything, our plans, our emails, everything." I swallowed hard. Maybe it's just consequences. No, this is targeted, coordinated, someone's hunting us. I almost laughed at the irony. Derek was being hunted all right, but not by who he thought, and certainly not by anyone outside this house. "Where are you staying?" I asked, though I already knew. "A motel off Highway 8, room 214. I turned to see Jason standing at the foot of the stairs, holding a yellow notepad. He walked over silently, tore off a sheet, and handed it to me. "Keep him talking. Police are 5 minutes out." I blinked, stunned. "Jason called the police?" I mouthed. He nodded once, and suddenly I realized what my grandson had become. Not just a boy with a laptop, not just a victim, but the one person Derek never expected to be held accountable by. His own son. "Mom, please!" Derek's voice crackled through the receiver, breathless, desperate. "You don't understand. Whoever's doing this, they know everything. They've got our emails, our bank info, even call logs between me and Madeline. This isn't some casual investigation. This is personal." I kept my voice steady. "Maybe your private things weren't as private as you thought." "Don't joke, damn it," he snapped, panic cutting through the line. "Our credit cards have been canceled." My phone pinged with a dozen fraud alerts in the last hour. The apartment we were supposed to rent in Jacksonville? Gone. The landlord got an anonymous tip. Someone is hunting us. I looked across the kitchen at Jason. He was sitting calmly at the table, laptop open, not even pretending to hide what he was doing. His fingers moved across the trackpad with surgical precision. Beside him sat a folder labeled Operation Collapse. He'd named the takedown of his own father like a mission briefing. Derek's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mom, I think they might come after you and Jason next. You need to be careful." The irony nearly made me laugh. "You think someone's targeting us?" I asked, staring at the child who had orchestrated every step of the fallout. Jason looked up then, and without breaking eye contact, he held up a printed news headline. "Financial advisor arrested in multi-state embezzlement scheme." Madeline's face stared back from the article, mugshot, red-eyed, and stunned. "You should probably turn on the news," I said into the phone. A beat of silence. "Why?" "Because your girlfriend was arrested this morning." A choked sound came from the other end of the line, half sob, half denial. That's impossible," Derek muttered. "She was just here. We were having breakfast. She said she had a plan." I looked down at Jason. He flipped his laptop around so I could see his screen. Live traffic camera. Sunset Motel, Route 8. Police cruisers in the lot. Officers entering room 214. Derek's voice changed, frantic, cracked. Oh God, they're here." The line filled with static, then muffled voices. Someone giving commands. Another voice reading rights. "Derek Walker," it said. "You are under arrest for identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit financial fraud." The line went dead. I stood frozen for a moment, the phone still pressed to my ear. Jason calmly closed his laptop and slid it into his backpack. I turned to him, unable to keep the tremble from my voice. "Is it over?" "The arrests are over," he said quietly, "but now the real work begins." He walked to the sink, poured himself a glass of water, and drank slowly. At 13, Jason moved like someone far older, his face calm, his energy grounded. There was no gloating, no pride, only a measured sense of completion. "You planned everything," I said, "right down to the motel address." Jason nodded. He gave it away during the call. "I confirmed the reservation through the hotel's online system, used Dad's old login email. He never changed anything, not even his security questions." I sank into a chair, overwhelmed by everything that had unfolded. What happens next? Jason sat across from me, folding his hands like he was preparing to deliver a lecture. "Madeline is in custody. She'll probably cut a deal, she always does, but I've already sent the evidence to the DA's office, state regulators, and Silverview's compliance team. Her professional license is already under review." "And Derek?" He hesitated. "If the prosecutors follow the paper trail, he's looking at federal time, minimum 5 years. I swallowed hard. "That's still my son." Jason looked at me gently. "And he's still my father, but we can't protect him from the consequences of what he did. Not anymore." I nodded, unable to argue. Jason reached into his backpack and pulled out a small stack of envelopes, each one labeled with the name of a victim. "Today, I'm mailing these. You're really going to contact them, all the people she stole from?" He nodded. "They deserve to know. Most of them don't even realize what's happened yet. They think their money disappeared in a bad investment or because of market fluctuations, but it was theft, plain and simple." "And what if they ask who sent the files?" "They won't know. I've created a pseudonym, used an encrypted email address routed through multiple VPNs. I've studied how whistleblowers work. I'm not risking anything." I looked at my grandson, the boy I raised, fed, comforted when he woke from nightmares. And I saw someone else now. Someone who had survived betrayal and turned it into purpose. "Why, Jason, why do all this yourself?" He met my eyes, and the softness I'd missed for days returned to his face. "Because you protected me my whole life," he said. "And someone had to protect you." We sat together in silence, sunlight filtering through the kitchen window, catching on the edge of his glasses. It should have felt like an ending, but it didn't. It felt like the beginning of something else. Something harder, yes, but cleaner, stronger. A new chapter not written in pain or fear, but in truth. And Jason? He wasn't a victim anymore. He was the author of our recovery. 3 days after the arrests, the world outside our little house kept spinning. School buses still groaned down the street. Neighbors still waved from their porches. Dogs barked, garbage trucks clanked, and the local high school's marching band practiced in the distance like nothing had happened. But inside, everything had changed. I sat at the kitchen table sorting bills into 2 piles, ones we might be able to pay and ones we absolutely couldn't. The second pile grew faster. Our water bill was late. The electric company had sent a 3rd notice. The mortgage was due in 9 days. That was when the phone rang. Caller ID, Derek Walker. My breath caught. I shouldn't have answered. I knew that, but something in me, some stubborn maternal instinct that hadn't died yet, still hoped my son might be calling to apologize, to explain, to say thank you for raising my child when I couldn't. I pressed accept. "Mom," he said quickly, low and panicked. "I don't have much time." I could already hear it, the buzz of prison security, the mechanical flatness of recorded calls. This wasn't a conversation. It was a transaction with a timestamp. "I need help," he said. "You're in jail," I replied calmly. "There's not much I can do." He exhaled hard, like the reality of it was just now catching up to him. "They're trying to pin everything on me. Madeline's cutting a deal. She's claiming I manipulated her. She's saying I created the whole scheme." "You did," I said quietly. "No, I didn't." His voice cracked. "I didn't start it. She approached me first. She was the one with the plan. I thought we could fix our lives. By stealing from me? From Jason? From half the seniors in Springfield?" He didn't answer. I could hear him breathing, though. Just that. Breathing, like someone clinging to the edge of something steep and unforgiving. "Mom," he said after a long silence, "who's been helping you? I know it wasn't just luck. Someone got into my email, my accounts. They knew passwords only I used. I'm not sure you want to know the answer to that." "Tell me." "No." "Why not?" "Because if I tell you," I said, my voice sharpening, "you'll realize you weren't just defeated, you were outsmarted. And it wasn't by me, and I don't think you're ready to carry that shame." More silence, but this time it was heavier. Then, barely above a whisper, "Was it Jason?" I didn't answer, but that was answer enough. A shudder of breath came through the line. "He's just a kid." "Not anymore," I said. "Tell him I'm sorry." I didn't say anything. The line beeped. Call limit reached. I hung up. When I turned around, Jason was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You knew it was him," he said. I did. Jason walked over to the table, picked up the smaller stack of bills, the ones we might be able to pay, and looked at them like he was measuring damage. "He say anything useful?" "He said he was sorry." Jason gave a short breath that wasn't quite a laugh. That makes 2 lies in 1 sentence. He sat down and pulled his laptop from his bag. The screen lit up, and in seconds he was navigating spreadsheets and email folders again, like it was muscle memory. "Any updates?" I asked. "A few," he said. "3 of Madeline's victims have already filed official reports. 2 have lawyers now. One of them, Mrs. Green, had a daughter who's a financial journalist. She's writing a feature on the case." My stomach twisted. "Your name?" I gave her a pseudonym, M. Baxter. "It's close enough to mine, but not traceable." He looked at me then, eyes clear. "No one will know it was me unless I want them to. I just don't want you getting pulled into something too big, too fast." "I'm already in it, Grandma," he said. "And besides, I'm not the one who should be afraid of being exposed." He pulled up another browser tab, one showing court documents, sealed indictments, early restitution filings. "What's that?" "The beginning of recovery," he said. "I've been working with a local legal clinic. They think we can get at least partial restitution from Madeline's assets, real estate, car, crypto holdings." "Crypto?" Jason nodded. "She moved part of the stolen funds into crypto wallets. But she wasn't careful. She used a KYC-verified exchange. I already traced the withdrawals. It's all in the report." I stared at him, awe blending with sadness. "You talk like you're 40. He smiled faintly. "You raised me like I had to be." We worked in silence for a while, him scanning, me sorting. There was no music, no TV, just the quiet rhythm of paper and keys, the hum of a refrigerator that might get shut off if we missed another payment. Then Jason broke the silence. "Do you think he'll ever come back? Not physically. I mean, emotionally." "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I don't think it matters anymore." Jason nodded slowly. "Good, because I'm not looking backward." He clicked into another document, this one titled Phase 2, Education and Prevention. "What's that?" "A new project," he said. "There are families out there who don't know they're being targeted. Elderly folks, disabled people, small business owners, people like you. I want to teach them how to spot the red flags, how to protect themselves." "You're going to teach?" He shrugged. "Someone has to. Who's going to listen to a 13-year-old? He smiled. "They won't know I'm 13. And I had to laugh, a real laugh, despite everything. Because of course they wouldn't. He was too sharp, too thorough, too quiet to be anything but taken seriously. Jason stood and closed his laptop. "I'm going to start with our neighborhood. Flyers, a website, maybe a few anonymous video tutorials, nothing big." I watched him walk away, already scribbling ideas in his notebook. He wasn't doing this for revenge, not anymore. He was doing it for prevention, for justice, for every elderly man or woman who had smiled politely while being robbed blind, for everyone who trusted the wrong person, for people like me, and maybe even for people like his father. It started with a newspaper article, just a little one, below the fold. A 2-paragraph piece in the Springfield Gazette with the headline, "Local Advisor Arrested in Embezzlement Investigation." I clipped it and taped it to the fridge, like people do with honor roll certificates or coupons for milk. Not because I was proud of what it represented, but because it was real, proof, the kind you can hold in your hands. But that was just the beginning. 3 days later, a news van rolled down our street like a shark smelling blood. The doorbell rang while I was watering the geraniums on the porch. A woman with perfect hair and a clipboard introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Jessica Hale with Channel 8. We're doing a follow-up piece on the Madeline Quinn embezzlement case." She tilted her head, all sympathy and teeth. "You're Derek Walker's mother, right?" I hesitated. Yes. Would you be willing to speak on camera? I wanted to slam the door. Instead, I said, "No, but I'll give you a quote." She leaned in. I looked her dead in the eye. "Real family doesn't steal from their own." She wrote it down, word for word. Jason was watching from the stairs when I came back inside. His arms were crossed, his expression unreadable. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "I didn't give them your name." "I know," he said. Then, after a pause, "But they're going to find me eventually." He wasn't scared, just prepared, like a chess player who'd already seen 10 moves ahead. That night, the story ran at 6 o'clock. They used Derek's mugshot. Dull eyes, 3-day stubble, the face of a man who never expected to be held accountable. They said he was cooperating. They said dozens of victims had come forward. They did not say how the scheme was discovered. But online? That was a different story. An anonymous blog post appeared titled, "How a Teenager Took Down a Multi-State Financial Fraud Ring." No name, no city, but the details were unmistakable. Jason stood behind me while I read. Every line of it was written with the calm, methodical tone of someone who didn't want credit, only clarity. It didn't take long before it went viral. The story got picked up by cybersecurity forums, whistleblower networks, even a parenting blog. Some people thought it was fake. Others hailed the mystery teen as a hero. A few claimed to know who it was. Jason said nothing. He didn't correct them, didn't claim it, didn't deny it. But things started to change. The next week, an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a cashier's check for $1,800 and a letter from the district attorney's office. It was part of the restitution settlement from Madeline's seized assets. Jason watched me open it and didn't even flinch. "We'll use it to pay the bills," he said. "The rest goes back into the college fund." I wanted to cry, but I didn't, not in front of him. That same day, I got a call from Richard Hayes, one of the elderly victims Jason had helped. "I don't know who sent me the documents," he said, his voice trembling with gratitude, "but they saved my life. I would have lost everything. My wife's medication, our home." I didn't tell him who had sent the package. I just said I was glad he got the help he needed. After I hung up, I turned to Jason, who was reading on the couch. "You're making a difference," I said. He looked up, startled. "I'm just fixing what Dad broke." "No," I said. "You're building something. That's different." That night, he showed me the new version of his website, Family Watchdog, Financial Protection for Vulnerable Households. It had resources for caregivers, red flag checklists, even step-by-step guides on how to file fraud reports, all written in clear, friendly language. No jargon, no fear-mongering, just the truth. "I've had 7 people email already," he said. "They want help." "You're 13. Jason." "I know." "And you're running a digital watchdog organization?" "I guess so." I stared at him, at the kid who still left his socks on the stairs and couldn't figure out how to make rice without burning it. The same kid who had quietly brought down a criminal enterprise with nothing but a laptop and a sense of justice most adults couldn't spell. "I thought this was going to end when your dad got arrested," I said. Jason shook his head. That was never the end. That was just the reset button. Outside, the crickets were chirping, the night soft and forgiving. But something had shifted in me, something permanent. For so long, I'd believed survival was enough. Now I knew better. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were building something honest from the wreckage. The following week, Jason was invited, anonymously of course, to consult on a fraud prevention curriculum for a regional school board. He submitted his input under the name M. Baxter. I watched him explain to a panel of adults how teenagers could be both victims and defenders in digital crimes. He spoke clearly, confidently, with none of the hesitation most kids have when speaking to people with titles and pensions. And they listened. They didn't know his age, but they knew they were looking at someone who saw the battlefield before anyone else. It was a Thursday afternoon when the phone rang. I was grading essays at the kitchen table. Volunteer work now. Just a few hours a week at the local charter school. Jason was upstairs, tutoring a retired veteran on how to secure his banking apps. The kettle had just started to whistle. The caller ID stopped me cold. Springfield Correctional Facility. I didn't pick up. Not out of spite. Not anymore. Just clarity. It rang 6 times, then went to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. I reached for it out of instinct, my thumb hovering over accept. And then I turned the phone off. Some bridges don't collapse in fire. They just rust day by day until there's nothing left to walk across. Jason came downstairs a while later, barefoot, his hair still wet from his morning shower. Taller than he'd been even 2 months ago. He moved differently now, not like a boy trying to prove something, but like someone who already had. "There's a woman in Oregon," he said, setting his laptop on the counter. "Her teenage grandson has been stealing her Social Security checks. She didn't even know it until I walked her through the bank app." I turned, eyebrows raised. "How did she find you?" "Reddit," he said simply. "Someone posted about Family Watchdog. She clicked a link, booked a free consult." He said it like it was normal, like it wasn't extraordinary. "Are you happy?" I asked, setting down my tea. He paused at that. That thoughtful look crossed his face again. Linda's look, the kind of quiet pause people give when they want to answer truthfully. Not just quickly. "I'm proud," he said finally, "of what we survived, of what we're building." He pulled up his website on the laptop, now fully rebuilt and gleaming. It had a donation page, a downloadable handbook, a growing directory of free legal resources by state. A banner across the top read, "Because the people who break you shouldn't get to walk away clean." "You wrote that?" I asked. He nodded. "It's the only thing I really believe right now." That evening, he cooked dinner. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, apple slices on the side. The kind of meal you make when you're trying to comfort someone without making a big deal of it. Afterward, he handed me an envelope. Inside, another check. Restitution payment, $9,500. This one from a secondary asset recovery tied to Derek's sentencing agreement. I sat down slowly. "Jason, this puts us past half." "I know," he said. "With the earlier check, we've recovered over $28,000 of what was taken." "And the rest?" He gave a little shrug. "Still chasing some of it. But it's not just about us anymore. It hasn't been for a while." The next morning, Jason left early. He had a speaking engagement at a community center. Fraud prevention for families with aging parents. No one knew he was 13. He wore a blazer that was still a little too big in the shoulders and carried his laptop in a battered canvas bag with a patch that read, "Think twice, click once." He kissed my cheek before he left. "Wish me luck." "You won't need it," I said, "but I'll give it to you anyway." He grinned and ran out the door. The house felt different now. Quieter, yes, but not the lonely kind of quiet that used to make me turn on the TV just to hear voices. This was peace. There were still days when grief surprised me, when I'd pass Derek's old room and remember the boy I raised before he became a man I didn't recognize. I hadn't spoken to him since that last collect call. I didn't plan to. Forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't something you owe someone just because they share your blood. It's something they earn with time, honesty, and repair. Derek had given me none of those, and I didn't need him to anymore. Jason returned that afternoon flushed with energy. "They want me to come back next month," he said, kicking off his shoes. "Someone asked if I'd consider turning Family Watchdog into a nonprofit." "Are you?" I asked. "Already registered the domain," he said with a grin. "Working on the 501c3 paperwork next." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're 13, Jason." "I know," he said again, but this time it sounded less like a disclaimer and more like a warning to the world. That night, as I was tucking away the last of the dinner dishes, he came into the kitchen and stood quietly beside me. "Grandma." I looked up. "Yes, sweetheart?" "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't done it? If I just let it go?" I dried my hands and met his eyes. "Every day." He waited. "And then I remember that if you hadn't done it, we'd still be living in a lie," I said, "still handing money to someone who never earned it, still trying to fix a future that someone else decided to break." He nodded once, like that was all he needed. The next morning, a new headline appeared online. "Teen cyber sleuth helps dozens recover life savings." Jason saw it before I did. He simply walked by, muttered, "Took them long enough," and went back to eating cereal. I watched him from across the kitchen. This boy I'd raised in grief, who had turned pain into power, who had made it his business to make sure no one else fell victim the way we had. He still got straight A's, still helped me take out the trash, still said please to waitresses and thank you to librarians. But he was no ordinary boy anymore. He was a quiet kind of warrior, the kind who rebuilt legacies instead of burning them down. 6 months later, we moved into a smaller, sunnier house across town. No Victorian stairs to climb, no memories bleeding from the walls, just warmth, simplicity, and peace. Jason turned 14 with barely any fanfare, just a homemade cake, a few close friends, and a new pair of noise-canceling headphones he'd been eyeing for months. After dessert, he gave me a hug and whispered, "I think we're going to be okay." And I believed him, because we were. We weren't just a broken family anymore. We were a new one, stronger, forged in truth, guided by a boy who learned that sometimes the best way to love what's left is to make sure no one else gets hurt the same way. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.